Hello and welcome back to my channel. Bonsoir et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel, and as I stated in my previous tier list video, I'm going to be doing a few of these. This time I'm going to do, again, it's going to be like a two-part series of tier list videos about dragons. I know I'm a booktuber. My primary focus is books, but don't worry, a lot of these dragons have to do with books I've read, but I've mentioned maybe in some of my earlier videos that I was obsessed with dragons as a kid, and they remain to this day my favorite mythological creature. And then you know what, it's my channel, I can bloody do what I want with it. So I'm going to be, in part one, ranking CGI dragons. So I've seen a few different CGI dragons in movies and TV series, and I'm just going to be evaluating the realism, their quality, things like that. So first we have Smaug from the Hobbit movies. I thought he was very well realized. Most importantly, I thought he was very well acted by, voice acted by Benedict Cumberbatch, and his interactions with Martin Freeman as Bilbo was just great. As a dragon, design-wise, he's a very convincing wyvern-style dragon with, two hind legs and two forelegs, which are the wings. Bit more stylized, perhaps, than I would expect from just rendering an imaginary animal. But no, he was very good. So taking into account his psychology and the quality of his rendering as a CGI creature, I'm going to place him solidly in A tier. Then we have the darling of my childhood, Draco from Dragonheart, who was voice acted by Sean Connery. Anatomy-wise, because that's always very important to me in dragons, I want them to be as realistic as possible. I want them to be plausible animals. So it's a classic Western dragon shape with forelimbs, hind legs, and then an additional third pair of limbs, which are the wings. And I think he was very well done, especially for the time, because I think that movie came out in, the 1990s. The only thing that slightly bothers me about him is his head. I feel like the head is not saurian enough. It's a bit too flat, probably a bit too humanoid in a way to maybe make him more relatable and play around with facial expressions and things like that. So that bothered me a bit. So as such, I think I'm going to put him in B tier. Then we have Kilgara, who is the dragon you find in the TV series adaptation of the Arthurian mythos called Merlin, and which is centered on the character of Merlin as a teenager/young man. I love that series, by the way. Again, I think it's a little gem. It takes a lot of liberties with the mythos, or at least it reinterprets a lot of things. And the creators of the show clearly also, kind of like Marion Zimmerberli, tried to throw in a lot of elements of Arthurian legend, but just play around with it in different ways. But it's a great little series. I really highly enjoyed it. So it has a dragon, Kilgara. And CGI-wise, I also think he's a fairly beautiful dragon. I love his head shape. The wings are attached in a realistic fashion. I'm saying this because I'm going to contrast to what comes next. And just, a really nice example of a Western style dragon with 6 limbs. So as such, I think I'm going to put him maybe top of B tier, above Draco. I don't think it's quite good enough to go into A tier, so for now, top of B tier. So I said I would contrast the ring anatomy, because we have dragons from the Dungeons and Dragons movie adaptation. It's a movie based on the lore and world building of the Dungeons and Dragons board game, role-playing game franchise, which features Jeremy Irons in it as well. Jeremy Irons, like a few other actors, has played in amazing movies, but in also just not terribly good ones. And those dragons, at first glance, they look quite nice. I like their heads. It's fairly dinosaurish. But the way the wings are attached to the body, there's no way an animal like that could ever fly. It's just like one point of connection between the actual wing and the shoulder. The wing membranes don't attach to any kind of length of the main trunk of the body. But there's no way an animal like that can fly. I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. Well, I mean, I say this, but of course, some people say that aerodynamically speaking, like some beetles shouldn't be able to fly, but whatever, we're not going to get into this. From an vertebrate perspective, that thing should not be able to fly, so it's not a very good dragon from a fancy anatomy perspective. And as such, it's going to have to go into... I'm going to put it in D tier. It's not that bad that I think it deserves to be in D tier. I don't think any of these actually deserve to be in D tier, but since I kept the D tier, I might as well put something in it, and it's clearly the worst of the bunch in my opinion. Then we come to the amazing dragons of the Game of Thrones TV series, which... I feel still so bitter about it, but in any case, one thing I will give HBO and the CGI engineers who work at HBO is they have managed to create the most magnificent CGI dragons of all time. Maybe something will top that one day, but as far as I'm concerned, those are God tier, basically. They're S tier, I can tell you that already. Beautiful, and I love the way they made them grow up, so you see them as like chicks. Yeah, that's how you would call baby dragons, chicks. And then become adolescents, and then these ginormous monsters by the end of season 7 and 8. And with the colorings, which do remain fairly faithful to the descriptions given in the books. So here obviously you have a picture of a Drogon, but the same basically goes for Rhaegal and Viserion. So then I took a couple of dragons from the Harry Potter series of movies, because you do see a couple of them. Well, technically you see 3 of them. I didn't include Norbert. That was like the very first movie, and you just see it as a hatchling. So here you have... Oh, what was it, though? I can't remember the species of dragon it's supposed to be, but it's the dragon that is, poor thing, stuck at the bottom of Gringotts Bank, and it's a guardian dragon for like bank vaults, and it's horrible. It's animal abuse, it's animal cruelty, and it gets liberated. And that, to be fair, was an absolutely glorious scene in part 2 of the Deathly Hallows, I think it was. It was a beautiful dragon, but I like the fact that they rendered it as an old and abused animal that's gone blind from staying stuck at the bottom of mine shafts for most of its life, and the wings were beautiful. The anatomy was really good, and poor dear, so, Harry, Hermione, and no, is Ron there at that point? I can't remember, but they fly off on that dragon, and then that poor dragon's like, yay, I'm free, I'm in the fresh air, and goes straight to have a nice long drink of water. I was like, I'm happy for that dragon. Do I like it as much as the Hungarian Horntail, which is up next? I don't know. It was a very good dragon, actually. I'm going to put it just below Smaug. And so then we have the Hungarian Horntail from the Goblet of Fire. Wasn't a super big fan of its beak-like snout, but in and of itself, it's not a problem. If you're going to have variations among dragon species, some of them could have beak-like snouts. I did like the fact that all of the dragons you see in the movies are the wyvern type, which is more biologically realistic, and it was a beautiful dragon. Up until then, I think it had been my favorite CGI dragon until Game of Thrones came along. I liked its spikiness, its coloring. So this too is going to go... Oh, that's hard. Maybe... Actually, I know what I'm going to put. Maybe below Drogon. Sure, let's go with that. Then we have Saphira. So again, keeping in mind, I'm focusing here more on the CGI and the anatomy of the dragons more than the characters they might be in their respective works of fiction. Saphira was a fairly noble-looking Western-type dragon, again with the 6 limbs. But one thing I just cannot forgive the creators of the garbage adaptation that Aragon was giving her feathers on her wings, and just on her wings. Baby Saphira in that movie is absolutely ridiculously adorable, but we're going to put that aside for now. Why does she have feathers on her wings? That's just not canon. It's not described that way in the books. In the books, it is very specific that dragons are scaly winged creatures, and that's even in the root of the word for dragon in the ancient language in that universe. So what was up with that? But the blue coloring was beautiful, and she has a very noble head and a nice body shape overall. So she's not terrible, but I cannot forgive those feathers. I'm sorry, just no. It's not that basic alone. I'm sorry, Sophia, but you gotta go and see it here. And then finally, we have the dragons from the movie Reign of Fire, which I think is a underappreciated movie, maybe. I really liked it when I saw it. I mean, it's a different take on dragons in fiction. Basically, dragons existed at the time of the dinosaurs, and they wiped the dinosaurs out by burning them and eating them all, and then they kind of went dormant for thousands of years. And then at some point, poor sort of like maintenance worker goes down a subway shaft or a mining shaft, I can't remember exactly, and awakens these dragons. And the way that species works, there's like one male bull dragon and then lots of females, and there's a whole thing with that. But it's post-apocalyptic, but with dragons. But the dragons are actually really well done if you think about it. The way their wings are developed, like the membranes go down to their hind legs, a bit like bats. So you have a great surface area to create lift. The way they breathe fire comes from like special venom glands at the back of their throats. They have beautiful saurian heads with horns, and they're the wyvern type of dragon, so with hind legs and two forelimbs, which are the wings. It's not that recent of a movie, so honestly, for the time, they were really well realized dragons. So I guess I'm gonna put them at the top of A tier, because they do look very beastly, animalistic, so there's not that stylistic, personalized aspect of Smaug. It's not quite, I guess, as polished or as appealing to me as something like the Hungarian Horntail or, of course, Dany's dragons in Game of Thrones. So that's my ranking for these CGI dragons. It's fairly positive overall, as you can see. Most of them are B tier and up, and so now I'll be very shortly doing part 2, looking at the dragon characters themselves. So some of them don't even appear in works of like cinema or television. They're just dragons in fiction as characters. Until then, very shortly, I hope you'll have a lovely day, evening, whichever, and I shall see you very soon in the next video. Bye-bye.